Here.
Commissioner Garber.
Here.
Commissioner Howard.
Here.
Commissioner Emery.
Here.
Chairman Broder.
Here. All right, at this time, I would be looking for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Support.
I have a motion with support. Any comments on the agenda? Any changes? If I can remind everyone, we do have one tabled item that will stay tabled unless we move it to the agenda. Hearing no conversation on that, all in favor of approving the agenda as it's presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the agenda is approved. This time we have our first opportunity for public comment. Anyone?
Yes. A quick question before that. Tom Mankey, Wausau Township. On the Health and Human Services thing, it says approve the use up to $30,000 from the solid waste fund, waste management, or to fund 2 households. Okay, that doesn't have anything to do with our sewer system that we got that takes care of the Wausau, Corona, and the 2 townships. Okay, in case you don't know, there was a study that was just completed on February 28th. Wausau City Council was never given it. The township's been discussing it for several months. I was at a Wausau Township meeting. There's some extreme problems right now with the wastewater treatment plant. The workers that are working in the plant are working in conditions that are unacceptable according to the state of Michigan, and the study that was done says that their life and their health is in danger. Other people who live along the main line of the sewer system, these fume sulfites, something or another gases are getting out, and they're 4 times, 8 times, 20 times higher than what a person's supposed to get. It's going to be a huge expense. Wausau Township, they discussed it the other night. Again, the city of Wausau knew nothing about it. I contacted our city council members, our mayor, our city manager never gave it to them that there was this problem. And the study was done and put out on February 28th. So just so that you know that there is going to probably be more dialogue coming out on that, because it is according to, I can't remember the name of the engineering firm. It's a big engineering firm out of Lansing. This is big. People's lives are in danger right now, and so that's something that you should all be made aware of, even if it doesn't have anything directly to do with the county, except it is several of our townships. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, let's move on then to committee motions and reports. Commissioner Garber.
Thank you. I move to appoint Eric Morris as the Shiawassee County Corporate Counsel of Record.
Support.
I have a motion with support. Discussion. Dr. Boggs, did you want to?
If you want me to hit the highlights as we move through this, maybe I'll answer some questions that you have along the way. So, as you know, Eric has gone to work for the Public Defender's Office. We originally talked about him potentially going to work for the prosecutor's office several months ago, about 6 or 7 months ago, which is kind of the default position. So under the law, if you have a prosecutor's office who so chooses to, and the board so chooses, to have them represent you, they can be your corporate counsel. So we were looking at trying to find a way to do that to alleviate some of our expenses. However, in that time, a position opened up in the Public Defender's Office, which we thought would be a better fit, just on the other side, because 75% of that position would be grant funded and the duties with the Public Defender's Office, as opposed to the Prosecutor's Office, where 100% of it comes from the general fund, both our 25% and the 25% for the prosecutor. So this, potentially looking at the different bills that we've had over the last several years, could save us around $100,000 for about a $30,000 expense, which is approximately what it would cost. It's $26,580, but I gave a little wiggle room for Eric's 25%. So remember, he's coming in post December 31st of 2020, so there's no MERS plan, it's a 401k style system. So it's just like every other new hired employee, and we would just be responsible for that 26. Now, that being said, when he does things that are on other accounts that are non-general fund accounts, Veterans Department, Health Department, someone else that it gets external funding, he would be able to bill his time to that. So that would then reduce at the end of the year through a budget adjustment our amount of that 26, either further down. So that is the general plan. We have budgeted for Braun Kendrick this year. However, next year things are going to be tighter. This is going to be a way that we hopefully can shift that budgeted expense away from paying vendors and more towards keeping it in county, because that other $100,000 that we will save could be allocated towards employees so that we don't have to do any kind of layoffs as the budget gets tighter. I'd rather have it go towards county employees than towards vendors.
So he's going to keep track of who he's working for our internal billing, but not because we're paying an hourly.
No,
Okay.
no, 25%.
So I do have a question about
Yeah.
that. So the last couple of years, we've paid a little over $100,000, maybe more than a little over 120 something for corporate
152.
council services to Braun Kendrick. But that has all been Eric Morris for the most part, 90% probably.
Well, so we started with Ryan, painter. Then when Ryan left, Eric was assigned to be that firm's.
That's been how.
That was
Painter's
sometime
been
in 2021.
2020.
About a year and a half, yeah.
Okay, so still, we've paid about 100 for Eric's services.
Sorry.
So, just, that seems like a lot of volume to me, that he's done the volume of 110,000 and now he's gonna do that same volume for 25,000?
So the difference is the billable rate of Braun Kendrick is substantially different than the hourly employee rate. So Braun Kendrick's billable rate is $200 and some an hour. His direct employee rate under us is, hold on 1 second, I'll tell you. Yeah, I mean, it's a major difference in, whoops. $41.58. So it's almost, $200 less an hour. So would be, even though his amount of money has not really changed.
So do we have a contract with Koski, or the other firm that we
It's
made
not a
use?
contract, so we have letters of understanding,
Okay.
and we have always had these letters of understanding with Braun Kendrick and Bonnie Toski. So we've never stopped using Toski for certain things. There were certain cases that she was part of back in 2020 that still continued, and 2021, 2022, that only wrapped up last year. And so our last invoice from them was that, and she has always been willing to help us whenever we have something. Especially anything that goes to the Court of Appeals or anything like that, goes to her office anyways.
Because one of my thoughts is just when you're hiring an individual versus hiring somebody who's part of a firm, is you don't have the backing and the expertise and the breadth that firm has now.
That's right, and that's why I was saying we would keep them on for anything that he did not do, but you would be surprised the amount of our volume of stuff that we have that are FOIAs, things related to arbitrations, things related to union negotiations, and that is his specialty, is labor law. So this would be a good fit for that, and at all of those union negotiations that we've gone to, he's been the only one there from Braun Kendrick, representing our side with Greg and myself.
And I do know there have been a couple of things that came up where Eric simply said, I need to consult with some of my fellows at the law firm, and he will still have that available and will be billed for it. Hopefully, simply, it'll just be those few items where he knows his limitations and his experience.
I would agree with that, and the other part is, he's a county employee now. So if it doesn't work out, he can go and work 100% for the public defender's office if we decide this doesn't work. But I'd rather do it now while the budget is not extremely tight, as opposed to next year when we're looking for things and the options. This experiment may or may not work.
Sounds good to me.
I think it's the fact that he'd be willing to come here under this deal is a wonderful opportunity for us, and just kind of the kind of creative thinking that we need, that it's going to save us money. We do this sort of thing and it really can add up. I mean, what we're saving is almost a full-time employee in a different department.
Yeah, I mean, I think the total value of one of our employees at a high rate is about $106,000, $107,000 for someone that's high on the pay scale. So it could be potentially two employees at a lower seniority or lower rate, which is likely where budget cuts affect the greatest.
And of course, it's not a one-time thing. If it works out, Eric will hopefully stay with us and we'll have that savings year after year.
That's right, and all this board is doing is appointing him as the counsel of record, because you have the attorney-client privilege with your counsel, so you have to name them.
So we're not voting on a package?
No, he's already been hired with the public defender at 100% time with them. We would just be buying 25%, and that's all internal.
Has Doug been involved in this, I
Yes.
trust?
Nope, Brian approached me with this idea. Eric's very smart, very flexible. I think this will work out well.
I guess my concern, and it's just a caution, is if, and I don't know how much litigation we're gonna have, an attorney, the only thing he has to sell is his time, and when when times are good, you got a lot of demand on your time, there's still only so much of it to go around. And I talked to Brian yesterday, Mr. Boggs, and I was just concerned if we arrived in a situation where we had litigation, plus he's representing clients to whom he has a significant responsibility as the defendants, he could run into some time factors, and judges are not particularly congenial to the idea of attorneys say, well, I gotta do this or I gotta do that. You gotta do what you gotta do for that particular case. So it's possible here, and we just have to keep an eye on it, that he could get really caught between sometimes two judges, and both of whom think their case is top priority. So we just gotta be in consideration of that possibility. And Brian, you indicated that you would keep a close eye on that.
Yep. And he pointed out we got Bonnie Koski to back us up if we
If
need
we
somebody.
did, yeah.
You know, if we get into something that's real deep, so that's
So-
where we got, so we
And
should
most
be
of-
all set, so.
And most of the things that Eric does for us are union negotiations, which we can schedule, things related to FOIAs, which are, it has a timeline, but it doesn't have a particular deadline as far as those kind of things. And the only time we'd really be involved in litigation is if we were suing someone. Now, when we get sued, it all automatically defaults to the insurance company attorneys. So he would work with them, but chances are those court appointments would all be insurance company attorneys. So he wouldn't have to show up for those.
I'm pleased and highly confident this is going to work, but
So am I.
we can occasionally revisit it. You can let us know how it's going, a handful of months.
Certainly worth a tiny bit of risk for that kind of savings, so.
For sure. And he's gonna be a 12-6 on the scale. So it's just a position that's on the scale already, which is the same scale that was approved last month for the public defender's office, and we're taking 25% of that.
And if we could take that savings and keep another deputy on the road, that's a win-win.
For sure.
It's a lot of money.
Absolutely.
Other discussion? All right then. All in favor of moving this item out to tomorrow, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes.
All right, I move that we accept the county clerk's year-end report and place it on file.
Support.
Motion with support. Any discussion on that item?
Would you like us to have discussion, Caroline?
No, I think it was pretty clear and cut.
Okay.
Very good. All in favor of moving that on, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that moves on.
Thank you.
Commissioner Howard.
Yes, I move to accept and place on file the 2022 Drain Commission Annual Report as presented.
Support.
I have a motion with support. I think most of us got a chance to look at that. Tony, I didn't know if you wanted to say anything more. Just see if there are any questions for.
Oh, it was fascinating.
I hear it's been optioned for a movie.
Yeah.
All right. If there is no discussion on that, all in favor of moving that along, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good.
I move to approve the rehabilitation mortgage discharge for Sharon L. Conkus of 514 North Shiawassee Street, Owasso, John and Elizabeth Freeman of 725 Lincoln Street, Owasso, and Betty A. Natzel of 1305 South Pierce Street, Owasso.
Support.
I have a motion with support. Discussion.
You should be tapering down since we don't do this program anymore. There'll be some more coming due, but eventually there won't be any more of this.
What was the program?
It was a program where you could put a mortgage on your house and the county would give you some funding so that you could rehab your house in some way.
Oh, okay.
They took it place like a bank in some regards. I think you had to have certain qualifications. It wasn't just. The program was done away with in 2010. 9 or 10.
All in favor of moving this along, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That moves.
I move to approve the PA 116 farmland agreement application for Thomas and Shannon Hinterman in Bennington and Shiawassee Townships.
Support.
I have a motion with support. Discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
I move to approve the appointment of Christina Arlene, thank you again, to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Support.
A motion with support. Discussion on that item. Hearing none, all in favor of that, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that is approved.
All right.
Yes, Commissioner Webster.
Okay, item A, I move to approve the appointments of Tracy Peltier and Bob Beebe to the Community Corrections Advisory Board.
Support.
I have a motion with support.
Yes.
Brian asked me to give maybe a little bit of background on these individuals, so
Sure.
I will, you have a letter at place, from Bob Beebe. It's actually an email to me that kind of explains his work. So, the Community Corrections Advisory Board is, the members of it are laid out by Public Act 511. It requires that all 3 judges, the sheriff, somebody from Michigan Department of Corrections, a county commissioner, a person representing media, a person representing the business community, a person representing workforce development. They're statutory positions, and they've been posted. We were lacking, and we're getting ready to apply for the grant in May, and you have to have every single position filled in order to submit your grant. And so we had to go kind of recruit some people for a couple of positions that nobody had applied for. So I reached out to Michigan Works, which is our workforce development board, and asked them for a name. They recommended Bob Beebe, and that's who this email is from. He emailed his sort of little summary of what they do, which is exactly why that position is required on the board. And then we needed a media person. And Tracy Peltier, I'd asked someone from, well, we used to have Karen Mead-Elford, she's no longer at the And I had asked Z92.5 to give a name, and Tracy Peltier does their community spotlight piece. She used to be the downtown Owasso market coordinator, so she's a great promoter, events coordinator, which is the piece that we're looking for. Both of these names come to you with the unanimous approval of the Community Corrections Advisory Board. They've already voted that they would approve these names if you approve them.
Questions, other comments?
Sounds good.
Excellent. All in favor of moving that on to tomorrow, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that moves on. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Garber, back to you again.
Thank you. I move to appoint Greg Broder, Bill Dodge, Chrissy Lab, and Shelley Okanicki to the Shiawassee Health and Wellness Board.
Support.
Motion with dual support. Comments or questions on that? All in favor of moving that along, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that moves.
I move to approve to appoint Dan Sargent and Christina Artling to the Solid Waste Board.
Support.
Got a motion with support. Comments there? Just want to say the Solid Waste Board is going to become very important in the next handful of years. I'll be interested to see what they do, and I think two people we're appointing today are both well qualified. All in favor of moving that on, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that moves on.
All right, I move to approve the use of up to $30,000 from the Solid Waste Fund, Waste Management Fund 230, to Fund 2 Household Hazardous Waste Collections in 2023.
Support.
I have a motion with support.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
If I may, just so that everyone has this on their radar, the first one will be in Durand on April 22nd, and the second one will be in Owasso on September 9th.
All right. Other comments on that? All in favor of moving that along to tomorrow night, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And move that to tomorrow. At this point, I have an opportunity. I don't think I have anything to tell you all you don't know about. We started the move over to Griffin Home and over to the hospital. It is, of course, going completely smoothly with no complaints whatsoever. So, why are you all laughing? Actually, we already have had one little glitch. We didn't realize over at the Griffin home, everything is concrete and they were getting terrible echoes. So Dr. Boggs had Tim buy some carpet remnants, and that's helped some.
Yeah.
But it'll be a little loud in there. We have this sort of playoff between we want to make it comfortable and yet how much money do we want to spend for 6 months. So we're trying to balance that a little bit. They did some stuff with the parking back there to try to get it to be less muddy. Hopefully we'll have a dry summer. And it's an ongoing thing. But I'm pretty proud of how everybody has been working on this and getting going.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. Do we have a list of who's going where? Is that in writing somewhere?
There was a newspaper article on it. So the Register of Deeds, Equalization, the Treasurer, and the Vitals side of the clerk are all going to the Griffin home. Everyone else is moving with the court, so that would be the friend of the court, that would be circuit court, and then that would be the circuit court side of the clerk's office are going to the hospital.
But isn't some of the court stuff going to district court, or is that just courtroom use?
So that is up to Judge Stewart and where he's going to hold certain things. So there are certain criminal sentencing matters that he is going to use the courtroom at district court, so our inmates do not have to be transferred as far within the hospital. And then a lot of the civil docket I know is going to be held at the hospital. So that's kind of how they manage to break that down. So sentencings, for example, on Fridays will be here at the district court as opposed to moving the inmates. And he is going to be using the Polycon system a little more for arraignments and certain
So I'm just assuming there's gonna be some directories and signage and stuff posted around to really
Yeah.
help navigate these.
So Chrissy is posting it when she issues her order, because they have to issue an order saying that things are being, circuit court is moving to X, and those will all be posted out the door. So,
Hopefully, we'll do this without being too disruptive to our customers or to the hospital. I hope when all of this is over, they see that we were a good tenant, because they're being very helpful for us.
Mr. Chairman, if I could comment, Scioto Township was rather displeased with the move. I was texting Dr. Boggs during the meeting to try to answer some of their questions. There was a nurse that works at the hospital and another hospital employee that feel there is not gonna be enough parking, that they are struggling with parking now. So they wanted, their question to me as their commissioner was, how is that gonna work for the parking when the courts move to the hospital? So I contacted Dr. Boggs, went back and forth a little bit, and there is gonna be, as part of our agreement, designated parking. And Dr. Boggs did say, well, the administration felt there was enough parking. So in the meantime, several other people, they feel that the administration has plenty of parking because they have designated parking. They don't feel that the employees, so from what I'm hearing from my district, is that they're a little worried about the parking when the nurses come in, that they're gonna have to really struggle with the new building that's there now, all that increased parking for the wellness, the people
Yes.
using that.
I know they've massively increased their parking over there, and they also tore down that Sunoco across the street, and they have parking there, so
You're gonna have to walk a little bit, some of it.
I guess I just had to trust the hospital administration that they thought about that sort of thing.
So the nurses walk in the court people,
Again,
that's odd.
I can't tell their nurses that, I don't know.
I'm just really, I don't work there, I don't work out, and I'm not a nurse, so I'm just saying that was a
We're not in a
concern.
perfect world.
the bit of court parking that is reserved is not for our employees. It's for people coming to the court. Our employees will have to park where the other hospital employees park.
Also visited, so long as we were over at Griffin, we walked around the other side to look at our new vets facility. It's unfortunately taking longer than we had hoped between COVID and the electrician getting pneumonia and a lot of other things, but they're talking about an opening hopefully in May. So I hope that works out. At least when we have our grand opening, it should be nice and warm as opposed to opening it in January, February. So I'm gonna look on the bright side there. But it's moving along. It's still gonna be a great facility. Dr. Boggs, did you have anything else?
Just a handful of things. So this one is really interesting. The sheriff and myself put together a grant through Representative Alyssa Slotkin's office for some juvenile some cells for juveniles. So part of the issue that we have is there's no place to house juveniles before they're transported to wherever it is that they're going, whether it's treatment or another facility, because they have to be sight, sound protected. We submitted this grant last week, and then earlier this week we received notice that we made it through. It was a qualifying project and it was assigned to a particular federal division, which was great. That was the first major hurdle. Well, today we received news that they have invited us for a full application, which is due next week. So the sheriff and myself are working on the next step of this grant for approximately $700,000 to do some jail upgrades and create an area for juveniles for their temporary cells before they move to wherever they're being transported. Currently, it seems to be that they're told that they have to show up 2 or 3 days later after they've been sentenced, or whatever their term is for the juvenile courts. So this is going to be part of that way of housing them before they're transported somewhere else. This is good news for us, assuming that we make it to the next level of funding, but it's moved very quickly, and we will have an application in by the deadline, which I believe is whatever next Wednesday is, the 26th. So that's our major part. We are working on the audit, and so that will be done on time, as we have made it a custom and a priority to do these last several years. And then the move, we have been working on it. Greg and myself went down to visit where Julie is, and her office has now completely moved as of today. There's temporary signs that have been put up in front of the Griffin home. You will notice them, and they have an ability to cover up and uncover the particular offices that are there. So all 3 offices are listed on there, but right now it only says treasurer. After they move Lori Kimball in the Register of Deeds on Friday, we'll peel the next one back and it'll say Register of Deeds. And then finally, when Caroline moves over there, we'll remove the last one. So we're trying to keep it, the signage there, trying to post things on the door so that we can direct people accordingly. And that's about all I have.
I saw that sign.
Right.
Yeah, a big green sign. And so the next one that'll come off is Lori's on Friday, when she gets moved over. But we did add some carpet remnants. Owasso carpet was very helpful, and they had a large amount of gray carpet that we were able to get to put in the auditorium area, and then a couple of offices, and it's changed the noise level drastically.
All right, very good. At this time, we have our second call to the public. Tom, I see you're on the list.
Yes, just so that, bring you up to date on something that you might all not realize. That was something that Dr. Boggs touched on, juveniles. One of the reasons why we have such a problem with juvenile crime, we have no place to put them. They're just let go. They're not arrested. They're just sent home. They know it. I've had now they've lowered the age, but I've had 15-year-olds tell me that we're committing crimes. No big deal. They're not gonna take me. There's no place to take me. When we got rid of the juvenile detention center at the Griffin home a number of years ago, we just put it out where kids can do whatever they want. If we want to, yes, and I think our defense attorneys can tell you this, we have to pay an officer to drive them all the way to Saginaw, wherever. We don't have that kind of money to drive juveniles around, and then drive them back down, drive them back up, drive them back down. So they're just let go. There's nothing. But that's that, and that's something that this board's going to have to look at. And I think they're going to have to work with our defense attorneys and our prosecuting attorneys and our court system. Is as of right now, it's you can do just about whatever you want, and no one's going to do anything because no one's going to drive you to Saginaw or Bay City or wherever they got to go. Number 2, and I totally understand Marlene certainly not contacting me about this advisory board position. I don't want it. But she handpicked Tracy Peltier. She's not media. Tracy was picked up just a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, to do a radio show on a local radio station that reaches maybe a couple thousand people in our market. Their radio station reaches people in other markets, not here, because their equipment is not set up for here. So I think it's a total farce that Marlene did. She didn't go to the Argus. She didn't go to the Independent. She didn't go to me. She didn't go to Flint M Live. She handpicked a person that's politically in her persuasion, but she is not media. And I will fight you on this. She is not media. You should have gone to the Argus. You should have gone to the Independent or M Live. But you should have never have gone and handpicked a friend of yours who's not media. So I would say tomorrow, suggest that a person is picked from a real media source. Not me. I'm not volunteering. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Just if I could.
Please.
I just want to say I'm disappointed that we didn't revisit the support for Capillary Community Services tonight. This wasn't gonna affect the general fund. It's gonna affect many in our community, many households that aren't gonna get the help they need.
It is still on the table,
Thank
just
you.
so you know.
Yeah, without our support, the Cook Foundation does not give their support, and the Capillary Community Services is unable to put hours of time into Shiawassee County. They'll spend their time at Ingham and Clinton, but they don't have time for us because we aren't able to fund them at this time. They're out of funding.
Yes, please.
I'd like to just respond, Mr. Mankey. As I mentioned, this decision about who to appoint was made in this room during our Public Community Corrections Advisory Board meeting. All of the people who were here voted to approve this. When we were looking for a media person, there weren't names that came up, and I did bring this person's name up. We talked about who we wanted to appoint as media, and there weren't any suggestions from all of the people who were gathered in the room, which you're welcome to look at the minutes to see who was there. So we were looking for a person who could do what we're looking for on that board, and that's the name that the entire board unanimously approved.
Non-media though. It was somebody you wanted. Thank you.
Any other commissioner? All right, we're adjourned.